Good morning. We're going to have a very short devotion today, Acts 23, just verses 1 through 11 today. Just verses 1 through 11. It's Paul before the council, and I have a few notes I want to look at to see. Okay, so Paul goes before the council. It says, Paul, looking intently at the council, said, Brethren. Interestingly, by the way, he calls them brethren. He has not been a Pharisee in over 20 years. At one point, he was truly with them. So he was released in the previous chapter. Now he's back. He said, Brethren, I have lived my life with a perfectly good conscience before God up to this day. The high priest Ananias commanded those standing beside him to strike him on the mouth. So now Paul is struck. He's probably beat up and then gets up again. Then Paul said to him, God is going to strike you, you whitewashed wall. Do you sit to try me according to the law and in violation of the law order me to be struck? Now, it's interesting about that. Whitewash would cover something. It wasn't perfect, but it looked better. Now, we know that they would whitewash things back then, whitewash tombs to make it obvious that they were tombs so they did not accidentally touch them and become unclean. And Jesus got on the Pharisees about that. I want to see if I have a quick cross-reference. Yeah, Matthew 23:27. Jesus was critical with the Pharisees about that. So Paul is really accusing them, you whitewashed wall, you're not perfect, but you're just whitewashed to make yourself look better. Verse 4, but the bystander said, do you revile God's high priest? And Paul said, I was not aware, brother, that he was high priest. For it is written, you shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people. That's interesting. Why was Paul not aware that he was the high priest? Could it be that Paul's eyesight was so bad he really didn't know it? That's possible. It could also be that he was basically saying, I didn't know somebody this crooked would be the high priest. Anybody this crooked would be the high priest. Verse 6. But perceiving that one group were Sadducees and the other Pharisees, Paul began crying out in the council, Brethren, I'm a Pharisee, a son of a Pharisee. I'm on trial for the hope and resurrection of the dead. Now that's very interesting. Paul played a game here. The Pharisees believed in the resurrection. The Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection. And so he's really dividing them right here. As he said this, there occurred a dissension between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, nor an angel, nor spirit, but the Pharisees acknowledged them all. And there occurred a great uproar, and some of the Pharisees of the Pharisaic party, some of the scribes of the Pharisaic party stood up and began to argue heatedly, saying, We find nothing wrong with this man. Suppose a spirit or an angel has spoken to him. And as a great dissension was developing, the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them, and ordered the troops to go down and take him away from them by force and bring him into the barracks. But on the night immediately following, the Lord stood at his side and said, Now this is Jesus talking to Paul, Take courage, for as you have solemnly witnessed to my cause at Jerusalem, so you must witness at Rome also. And Paul wanted to go to Rome. So the Lord encourages Paul right here. So I hope this encourages you in the Lord today as we continue the Acts of the Apostles, the Acts of the Holy Spirit, the Acts of the early church. Have a good day. God bless.